Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna, Hare
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Everybody together again. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisance as Sri Srila Prabhupada. Welcome devotees to our morning Bhagavatam class. This morning we'll be continuing with Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 13, Verse 20. And the chapter is entitled Dhritarashtra Quits Home. And it's the last week of Kartik. So it's very, very important that we all really make a commitment, try to join our morning classes as much as possible. Because if we remember, hearing is the first in the 9 devotional processes. When we engage in service, simultaneously, we have to increase our hearing. And what better time during Kartik? And that will carry us through our future, into our future. So we encourage devotees to please join the classes. Without further delay, the class will be, we will start the class and we're given by His Grace Parikshit Prabhu from ISKCON Harrisburg. Hari Bol.
Jaya Radha Bhagavan
Vindhya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Vindhya Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Vivadadari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Vivadadari Yashodanandana Vrajajanarandana Yashodanandana Vrajajanarandana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Vindhya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Vindhya Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Vivadadari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Vivadadari Yashodanandana Vrajajanarandana Yashodanandana Vrajajanarandana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Sharad Bihari Radha Sharad Bihari Radhe Jaya Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Radhe Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Haribo 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 Nitai Gora Haribo Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramhansa Parivajikacharya Stotra Satyasri Mani Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramhansa Parivajikacharya Stotra Satyasri Mani Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavindi Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Charya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Mathura Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Jagannathpuri Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Swami Ki Jai Ganga Mahi Ki Jai Chamuna Mahi Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Brahmanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna. All glories to the Lord is Sri Shri Guru and Gauranga Kalshila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Nityananda Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Siddhartha Sri Gaura Karuna Shakti Nityananda Narayana Namaskritya Naroncheva Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasa Tato Jayam Udirayat Nashta Prayesu Abhadresu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavata Uttama Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Good morning, dear devotees. This morning's class, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 13, which is entitled Dhritarashtra Quits Home. And we're doing text 20 today. So I'll read the Sanskrit 3 times, and then anyone who feels inspired to repeat the Sanskrit shloka can do so. Yena cheva vipano yam prane priyatamairapi jana sadyo viyujeta kim utanye danadibi. Yena cheva vipano yam pranay priyatame api jana sadyo viyujeta kim utanye danadibhi. Yena cheva vipano yam pranay priyatame api jana sadyo viyujeta kim utanye danadibi. Hare Krishna.
Yena chaive vipano yam prane priya tadmairapi jana sadhyo vijudyate kim untanye danadibhi. Hare Krishna.
येन चैवाभिपन्यो अयं प्राणः प्रियतमैरपि जनः सद्यो वियुज्येत किमुत्तानैर्धनादिभिः. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Anyone else?
Yena chaiva vipanoyam pranay priyatamairapi jaina sajo viyujeta kimutamaya danai devihi. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else? All right, word for word. Jena, pulled by such time. Cha, and. Eva, certainly. Abhipana, overtaken. I am this. Prane, with life. Priyatame, which is most dear to everyone. Api, even though. Jana, person. Sadhya, forthwith. Viyujeta, do give up. Kim uta anye, what to speak of any other thing. Dana adivi, such as wealth, honor, children, land, and house. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Whoever is under the influence of Supreme Kala, eternal time, must surrender his most dear life, and what to speak of other things such as wealth, honor, children, land, and home. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. A great Indian scientist busy in the plan-making business was suddenly called by invincible eternal time while going to attend a very important meeting of the Planning Commission. And he had to surrender his life, his wife, children, house, land, wealth, etc. During the political upsurge in India and its division into Pakistan and Hindustan, so many rich and influential Indians had to surrender life, property, and honor due to the influence of time. And there are hundreds and thousands of examples like that all over the world, all over the universe, which are all effects of the influence of time. Therefore, the conclusion is that there is no powerful living being within the universe who can overcome the influence of time. Many poets have written verses lamenting the influence of time. Many devastations have taken place over the universes due to the influence of time, and no one could check them by any means. Even in our daily life, so many things come and go in which we have no hand, but we have to suffer or tolerate them without remedial measure. That is the result of time. Om Aginatimirandasya Gyana Ginashalakaya Chakshu Umilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tirati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Vitaka Parakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Shcha Shri Rupa Sagajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tansajiva Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanusate Devi Paramami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhibhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivachari Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirveshesha Sunyavari Paschatyadi Shacharini Namo Mahabharanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Gurachashe Namaha Ananda Lilamaya Vigrahaya Himabhya Divecha Vishandaraya Tasmi Mahaprema Raspadaya Chaitanya Tindaya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Tindaya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Tindaya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Tindaya Namo Namaste Hare Krishna. The translation again. Whoever is under the influence of supreme Kala, eternal time, must surrender his most dear life and what to speak of other things, such as wealth, honor, children, land, and home. Hare Krishna. So, here, it's been explained to us time. So what's the meaning of time? Then we'll talk about time based on what's been described here. Now, the dictionary definition of time, it says the indefinite continued progress of existence and events in the past, present, and future regarded as a whole. It's quite a fancy way of describing time, but that's what it says here. And then the second definition is a point of time, which is already bad because you don't use the same word to define that word, but that's all right. A point of time measured in hours, minutes, past midnight or noon, like the time is 9:30, something like that. So, we measured by a time taken. You see that I've kind of spoken this, reading directly from a definition of time in the internet, different dictionaries. They also try to put time in a certain category. But for the spiritual way, time is simply defined as it says here. Anyway, the first one, I'll give them credit for that, the indefinite. So it says it's eternal time. eternal time. And whoever is under the influence of the eternal time, that's who. Those under the influence of eternal time are the ones that are in the material world. In the spiritual world, there is no time as such. Events do take place, but that's based on what Krishna desires. It's not based on the sun rising at a certain time and going through its motion at a certain time and ending at a certain time. That's not what's in the spiritual world. What's in the spiritual world is one event after another based on what Krishna wants. Therefore, not that we're going to do this in the morning and this one in the afternoon and this one in the evening. No, it doesn't work like that. It only works on Krishna's desire, his supreme will. That's all. And the weather is also like that. The weather is always based on the pastimes that Krishna wants to involve in or planned for him. So the spiritual world, time does not control the residents. But in the material world, time does control the residents. So that's the difference. So we are in material worlds, therefore, under the influence of time. Things happen at certain times. And the last one, which is the end of one's life, that time is controlled here by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's called the Supreme Kala. Kala is time. Krishna says, actually, time I am, the destroyer of all things. Why the destroyer of all things? Because after a certain time, everything that's in the material world must go. In different times, they go. The different times. The ant spends very short time. The germ spends even shorter time from its birth to its death. The demigods may live for millions of years, but they also must leave the world. Lord Brahma lives for 311 trillion years and 40 billion years. He may not be imaginable by our standard of looking at time, because we'll be long dead. We dare die in 100 years or less. But he lives 311 million, taken a million times. It's mind-boggling, but it also comes to an end, though. It comes to an end. So even Lord Brahma has to leave. So whoever is under the influence of eternal time must surrender his most dear life, and what to speak of other things such as wealth, honor, children, land, and home. So Vidura is explaining this in Hastinapur at the palace. Now, he put it in a very nice way. Whoever is under the influence of Supreme Kala, eternal time, must surrender his most dear life. Now, we use the word, or the two words, dear life, quite a bit, especially when our life's threatened. I have to protect my dear life and the dear lives of my family members. But it's said here, as Vidura explains, no matter what we do, time comes and takes it all away. All material things must go, including our lives. So that's what's explained here to tell Dhritarashtra it's time to prepare to leave. Your wealth, honor, children, land, home have to go. They have to go because this is how time determines things. We don't have any say in the matter. And so Shiv Papa starts with a situation that's quite sarcastic. There was an Indian scientist. He is in the business of making plans, plan-making business. Therefore, if something has to happen, you can help people with how to use time for plans. And Shiv Papa says, well, suddenly this person was called by invincible, eternal time. That's a nice way of saying that he lost his life. He was suddenly called by invincible eternal time while going to attend a very important meeting of the Planning Commission. He was on his way to a meeting of the Plan Making Commission, and he didn't get there. Eternal time took his life. He had to surrender his life. He was married, he had children, so he left them. He had the children, the house, land, wealth. And then Srila Prabhupada gives another example. When there was dispute between Islam and Hinduism in India, there were so many clashes. People lost their lives. And finally, it came to a point, Pakistan, which is now Muslim, still Muslim, predominantly, separated from India. So Hindustan now is India and Pakistan is Pakistan. And during that time, because there was conflict, a lot of people, even the rich people, had to die. And with the death, just like this person who is in a plan making business, maybe probably quite well off too. Also, when that happens, of course, those things that are in the material world that belong to, we say belongs to us, we lose them. So actually, time tells us that we don't own anything. Time tells us we don't have control over anything. The weather tells us we don't have control over anything. What little that we say we have control over is only there for a short period of time, 100 years, and we don't have it anymore. Some things have our signature on it that we are owners, and some things we are renting. Belongs to somebody else we're in. But actually, our own bodies belong to Krishna. In a sense, it's given to us on lease for a lifetime. And after that, it's taken away. And the way it's taken away also is that we start from young, baby, then we grow, then we are for a while around, then some, depending on the ashram they're in, or get married, then they have children, and then slowly the body begins to fall apart, more obvious, and then the body gets really, really bad in the old age, and then we vanish, death. And the influence of time causes all of this stuff. Everybody goes to, every living entity goes through that in different periods of time, Everybody goes through, every living entity goes through that. But the soul does not get affected in that way. It moves on to the next existence because the soul does not die. Why? Because the soul is part and parcel of Krishna, and Krishna is time. Krishna is not influenced by time. It's not influenced by time. Therefore, the soul does not die, and therefore time doesn't influence the soul in that way. But if you're in the material world, then the soul, unfortunately, has to go from one body to another, unless this particular process, Krishna consciousness, is taken seriously, then one can get out of the repeated birth and death, which is also controlled by time, by the way. Every body that the soul enters has a particular time that they will be in a particular place in the material world. And Srila Prabhupada says, many poets have written verses lamenting the influence of time. So if you're a materialist, you would definitely lament the influence of time, because if you work very hard to get so many things, and then you realize that you can't even enjoy them, and time is in fact taking things away, especially our health. So it doesn't matter how much that we have, but time is taking them away. Sometimes if you're observant on the road, you'll find many expensive cars, sports cars, cars that cost quite a bit. And you will look behind the steering wheel, you will see that an older person is driving it. It's not an accident at all. They plan. They plan and they figure we work hard and make money. And then when we retire, we will live a very sumptuous material life. That's what they think they're going to do. But then the reality comes to them that, yes, you can buy whatever you save money to buy, and you can live a life that's upscale, but your physical body is not going to be upscale. At the time you're working hard, you're making money. The time comes, you want to enjoy them, but retirement means that's the time the body starts breaking down. That's the time the body starts breaking down more significantly. And it gets to a point where working hard becomes difficult, and that's why there's retirement. But then people think, oh, retirement, I don't have to go to work. Therefore, if I've accumulated all this money, it's time to enjoy. It can't. The physical body is slowed down. So whatever they're able to do, they'll be able to do, but not to the extent that they could do if they were younger. But at the time they were younger, they were working hard to save money. So see, when you're younger, you work very hard. You tax the body more. When you're older, you think you're retired and you want to enjoy it, but the body does not give you the chance to enjoy it because it's gotten too old. So that's material life, period. That's the way it is. When you're baby, you're dependent on the mother and the father. So whatever happens, you're just going by what they say. And much of the time, the things that happen, you don't quite understand. You just cry when things happen, and then they explain things to you until you get older. And then you try to find out what life is like. On a teenager, you learn things the hard way sometimes. The more stubborn you are, the more difficult it is going to be for you until you learn some things. And then you start working hard. I finished school. You think it's finished school means, oh, this is so difficult. Exams, it's all over now. Well, you start working, you see, it's another type of difficult, another type of challenge. So that's material life. Controlled by time that way. Now, since eternal time takes things away, and many poets who have looked at life, General Srila Prabhupada says here, they have written verses lamenting the influence of time. Now, we don't have to know the verses. All the verses would say is how this so and so could happen, but something that we didn't like, or our senses were challenged and we couldn't enjoy it. And the poets are writing like that. And Srila Prabhupada says, many devastations have taken place over universes due to the influence of time, and nobody can check them. Right now, we're in a situation that in our heart of hearts, everybody wishes for good weather every day, but we do not get that. We're not going to get that. We look up in the weather every morning. Some people do that, and I know I'm one of them. What is it going to be? Is it sunny? Is it cloudy? What the temperature is going to be? And we have to accept what it is. We don't have control over that. Time has control over us. And Krishna says, I'm time. Therefore, Krishna is the supreme controller. And when we understand that way and we know we are influenced by time, then our egos are put in check. Because it's only so far that we can go in anything. Many things will come and go. And then Srila Prabhupada says, just another way of saying this last thing, we have to suffer or tolerate them without remedial measure. We suffer and tolerate the weather, and we can't change it. But in the spiritual world, the weather is part of the pastimes of Krishna. They enjoy themselves, and the weather is like that. If it has to rain, then it will rain a particular type of liquid, part of the enjoyment. It doesn't have to always be water. It's all done in such a way. Everything now is under the service of Krishna and Krishna's will. And it's wonderful in the material world. I mean, in the spiritual world, sorry. Terrible in the material world. Wonderful in the spiritual world. Because you can have a great time and everything and everyone is not only cooperative, but loving. Not only cooperative, but loving too, on top of that. So this is the home that we've missed, our home that we've left and come here. And therefore we have to strive to go back. The process for going back is devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The process is actually practice. That's all it is. It's practice to go back to do what you used to do. It's practice for us to go back to do what we used to do, and we were in bliss, in the highest happiness doing those things. So here we're in the material world. And eternal time basically takes things away, all material things away. And means death comes to take this away, to be quite blunt. So if death takes all the material things away, why be attached to them? If you think it's going to be taken away, why should I be so attached to them? The more attachment anyone has to material things, the more disappointed that person would be when it's lost. Not even when they die, but when that thing dies before we do, or it's lost, so much disappointment is there. But everything spiritual is never lost. Spiritual is permanence. It's only permanence that's spiritual. Material is temporary. So devotional service is good training towards our constitutional activities in the spiritual world. This is what we're doing here, learning how to love Supreme Personality of Godhead again. We were envious of him, and now we've been put here. And by his own mercy, he has sent, he himself has come, immediately come with us in the form of Paramatma, being with us, and permitting us to do whatever we want to do in the material world. But he also sends his spiritual devotees to come to point things out to us. Sometimes he himself comes, like Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He himself, God himself, comes to show us what it is that we need to do to earn the mercy to get back to proper life. Proper life is spiritual life in the spiritual world. So we must detach from the material and concentrate our efforts on the spiritual. Now, how do you do that? First, one must learn to control the mind, because the mind is connected with the senses, and the senses are the ones that act. We can act materially or we can act spiritually. So in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, text 35, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, Asamsaya Mahabaho, Mano Duni Graham Chalam, Abhyasena Tukonteya, Vairagyena Chagri Yate. The translation, Krishna is saying, O mighty armed son of Kunti, that is Arjuna, it is undoubtedly difficult, very difficult to curb the restless mind. But it is possible to do that by suitable practice and also by detachment. Practice how to control the mind and by detachment. Krishna is saying that it's possible. So in the commentary or purport, Srila Prabhupada says, the difficulty of controlling the obstinate mind, like Arjuna expressed it, Krishna accepts it. But at the same time, he suggests that by practice and detachment, it is possible. So what's that practice? We cannot go sit in the Himalayas. Very, very few people can do that now. Sit straight, concentrate the mind on the tip of the eyes on the tip of the nose, be partly bringing the eyelids down, restraining the senses and mind. That way, many other things that you have to do. There are 8 asanas. And they're not easy to do. But practice of Krishna consciousness, however, though, then one engages. There are 9 types of devotional service to the Lord. And the first and the foremost of such devotional engagement is hearing about Krishna. Srila Prabhupada explains this is a very wonderful and powerful transcendental method for purging the mind of all misgivings. See, the mind is going to think about certain things. Some things are going to go to the mind will accept it, it will reject some things. But when we train the mind to hear about Krishna, then other things that are material, they begin to get less and less and less interesting to us. We also get enlightened about the nature of Krishna by hearing about Krishna. So the more one hears about Krishna, the more one becomes enlightened, and then we detach from everything that draws the mind away from Krishna. We prefer to hear things about Krishna, and things that keep the mind away from Krishna, we don't want it anymore. So detaching the mind from activities that are not devoted to Krishna, that's called vairagya. Vairagya means detachment from matter and engagement of the mind in the spiritual. So by practically hearing, especially every day, and they said in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, always hear. Service to Bhagavatam, hear Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Detailed description of him. Even though the Lord is unlimited, so much is learned from Srimad Bhagavatam about Krishna. So it's a practical method we have to keep hearing every day. And one becomes automatically attached to the Supreme Spirit. Then we become spiritually satisfied. And Srila Prabhupada gives the analogy that it's like just the feeling of satisfaction that a hungry man has for every morsel of food that he eats. You have prasad when the person is hungry, and they start eating while they're hungry, the more we feel satisfaction, and then the strength also comes back to us. So Srila Prabhupada says, similarly, by discharge of devotional service, one feels transcendental satisfaction. The mind becomes detached from material objectives. So he says it's something like curing a disease. And material life is a material disease, actually. We're trying to live that, but it's actually, it's not, it's perverted. So it's like curing the disease by expert treatment and appropriate diet. Expert treatment, appropriate diet. What's the expert treatment? Hearing of the transcendental activities of Lord Krishna. Everything we hear about him and of what he has done also in his pastimes, they are all expert treatment for the crazy mind. And when we eat foodstuffs offered to Krishna, that's the appropriate diet. So we get a suffering patients, material patients, we are in like a hospital. This is our situation. Material world is like being in a hospital. Some people know that something is wrong with them, and so they seek the appropriate treatment. But in this hospital, there are some people who say, I'm all right. I can do whatever I want to do. If I work hard, I get this, I get that, I get this, I get that. But that is Maya that's deceiving us, because it seems like things that we want, we can get. But everything that we get materially, there's something else that comes that gives us problems because we got that thing. So there's a situation where you never, even if you're trying to enjoy your senses, you're never totally satisfied. Then people say, oh, I don't have much money. One day I'll become a millionaire. And then everything I want, I can buy. I see people with all expensive cars and large houses and so on. I've got $1 million, I can do those things too. Then, if Krishna allows you through your karma to get $1 million, you'll find out what millionaire's life was like. You realize that it is not what it is made out to be. There was one radio personality actually left the body a few years back, and the contract for that radio show for him was put out. became public knowledge. Over a number of years, he was offered $280 million. I think it was 7 years or so, $280 million. He was very good. He had a lot of following, people following him. He was quite able to influence. It's a political type show that he has. He speaks 3 hours a day, Monday through Friday. He was asked, it's a radio show you can call in and ask questions. What does it feel like to be rich? Are you happy? He said, money can buy practically everything that you want if you have enough of it. Practically everything. But it doesn't make you totally happy. It doesn't. The guy was very brutally honest. And he always liked that. Even in politics, he would just say things like they were. And he says, you will have the satisfaction of being able to buy things that you want. But that satisfaction doesn't give you real happiness. It doesn't. So the happiness that we seek is within. It's within the soul. And when we serve Krishna, that will be more apparent in our minds and also in our hearts. That's where it is. As Srila Prabhupada says, translates in Nectar of Devotion, when one is not attached to anything, but at the same time accepts everything in relation to Krishna, then one is rightly situated above possessiveness. It's a very, very important statement. When one is not attached to anything, but at the same time accepts everything in relation to Krishna, then one is rightly situated above possessiveness. The Srila Prabhupada explains that a Krishna conscious person knows that everything belongs to Krishna. Now let's stop there. Everything belongs to Krishna. There's a computer in front of me. That belongs to Krishna. There's a desk in front of me. That belongs to Krishna. You say, but Krishna didn't create it directly. Does it make any difference? No. Everything that was used to make that thing is from material nature. Without material nature, nobody can construct anything. And material nature is put there by Lord Vishnu. Therefore, the starting material comes from Krishna. Now, who gives the intelligence to be able to figure things out? That also comes from Krishna. I'm situated in every one side. I am situated in every. From me comes knowledge, remembrance, forgetfulness. So the things that we use to make anything in the material world from Krishna, the material nature came from Mahavishnu, the force of Mahavishnu. The universes came from there. Lord Brahma was trained in order to make some varieties in there, and also living entities, some used in certain ways, in processes, for the same, taking the same starting materials from nature. So everything is from Krishna. So one who understands that is first in the right frame of mind. Now, if it's from Krishna, everything belongs to Krishna, then it means it doesn't belong to us. It does not belong to us. The Prabhupada even goes to the extent of saying, this is my hand, but that's not my hand. That's Krishna's hand. Krishna's hand that I'm using. That's actually the way it should be seen. So one who is not attached to anything, because it's not ours, it belongs to Krishna, but at the same time accepts everything in relation to Krishna. That means we use it in Krishna's service. That person is rightly situated. So Srila Prabhupada comments that a Krishna conscious person knows that everything belongs to Krishna, therefore he's always free from feelings of personal possession. This is what Vairagya is, detachment. Everything belongs to Krishna, therefore it's not for me, I cannot be attached to it. This is what cost Dhritarashtra his everything, including his sons. The crown belongs to me. He should have given to me. See what problem he brought? He lost everything, including the crown itself too, and all his children. The child that he wanted to be the next king after him, he lost him. He lost him in the battle. And he is the one that arranged things such that there was no choice but to have a battle. And he died in the battle. And not only that, the second one could have been king. He died. The third one could have been king. After the 100th one, 100 sons, they all died. So we don't own anything. When we understand that, then we are in the right frame of mind. So a person who understands that everything belongs to Krishna is free from feelings of personal possession. So it's very, very, very good medicine for the mind. So if you have to fix something, if you have to pay for something, if you go on like that and say, but it is actually for Krishna. So let me not get so attached to, let me use my intelligence and use money properly and responsibly, but everything is for Krishna. And even what I do materially, I only should do as is necessary to keep my body and soul together. But the rest of my time should be used in quality time, putting even more effort into thinking and accepting Krishna consciousness, activities as well as listening. The greatest activity is chanting. The first activity is hearing. The greatest activity is chanting because it's a yuga down, what is for this material world at this time in Kali Yuga. In other yugas, the mantras are different. This one that we're in, Kali Yuga, we chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And the more times that we say that mantra, the better off we are, because it is cleansing for the mind. It removes all the material attachments. That activity of chanting is very, very important, because we say, oh Radharani, oh Krishna, please engage me in your service. The service is transcendental service, and the more you keep repeating that, so it's almost like doing a mental demonstration against materialism, your own mind, personal demonstration. You riot and kick out all those material things and say, let the spiritual ones replace those material things. The only thing that's left material is those that are necessary to keep my body together. Everything else should be for Krishna. So we have to act. Rupa Goswami says, as long as we're in the material world, we have to act. We can't stop acting. So if the actions are performed and the fruits are given to Krishna, then that's called Vairagya, or more formally, Yukta Vairagya. And what do you get from that? So activities like that clear the mirror of the mind. The dirt of materialism that's gone from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime, you begin to get cleared. So in the end, when the mirror of the mind gets clear, the heart gets soft, softened up by Balaram's plow. That's another story to get into that. That's another time. You don't have much time now to explain that part. Then the seed of devotion can grow properly. And then one becomes very, very happy. And in the end, Mam Upashasi, Krishna says, he comes back to me, back home, back to Godhead. So it's really on us what we want. The material world will not give us the satisfaction we want. The spiritual activities will prepare us to go home. And we have to understand that death comes and takes everything away, even our so-called precious life. But that's when you're looking at it from a material standpoint. In spirituality, death means Krishna is coming in disguise to take us back home. As long as we've done the service of hearing, to purify our minds, to purify our hearts, and chanting, and then giving of ourselves to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in service, by serving devotees, by serving Guru, and by serving Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you so much for addressing this amazing point of time. And I think that's a verse in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, time I am, something like that.
Yes,
so,
the destroyer of all.
Yeah,
I've come to
yeah.
destroy.
Thank you for addressing this, because sometimes we forget that, we have no control of time, and we think we do have control of time, but we don't. It's all by the Lord's mercy. Thank you for addressing this amazing class. Would like to ask devotees if any questions, any comments, any clarification. Please do unmute yourself and share your question, ask your question, share your thoughts, a takeaway, a reflection. Looking down the list so I don't forget it. Or you can post it. You can post your comment or question in the chat, and I'll be happy to read it for you. There's one thing that I want to ask is this also, as you were speaking about time, it's a challenge that many people have, including devotees, not just those that are not practicing devotees, that we forget to really see Krishna in time. Even though Krishna says time I am, but we don't know how to really see that Krishna is time and he's the deciding factor. So how can we develop that consciousness or that understanding, I think is the first step. How can we develop that understanding that Krishna is time? Because sometimes, we know, even though we know Krishna's time, but then we give a lame excuse, time, like we just take it for granted. So how can we really not take it for granted? And at the same time, to really develop the understanding that Krishna is time and not to misuse it.
It has been told to us several times, as far as misusing time, that every moment when it's gone, you can't get it back. That is the first that we need to have our intelligence help us to cement that very much in our minds. Every moment that's gone by, we can't get it back. In fact, the present doesn't last long at all. As soon as we say something, whatever sentence that I finish by speaking, that's already gone into the past. So the moments just go one after another. When we use them in serving the devotees of Krishna, to serve Guru, and to serve the Lord, then the time is being used responsibly. We are in the material world, so the only time that we are excused or accepted when we use time for material things are those that are necessary to keep the soul and body together, as we said. Outside of that, time should be used to our advantage, because this time, as we explained earlier, that's not the way it's in the spiritual time. The term in the spiritual world, it's like the best way to describe it is it's like it's present. It's not controlled by morning, afternoon, and evening. But for us, morning, afternoon, and evening is one day. It's gone. Another morning, afternoon, evening, another day, it's gone. You cannot call back yesterday morning or yesterday afternoon or yesterday evening. You can talk about them, but you can't do anything with them. You cannot do anything with them. And therefore, with that consciousness, with that understanding, we need to use time as much as possible to remember and to serve Krishna. That is the best use of time. That is the best use of time. And even if we're using time and we don't remember that Krishna himself is time, but we are using time properly in serving Krishna, that is all right. That is all right. All we need to do is to use time to serve Krishna in bhakti, in devotional service. And that is proper use of time. Because you will remember Krishna when you're serving Krishna as the time goes by. And then when the body is no longer active and it leaves the soul, then Krishna takes the soul back to the spiritual world. And now eternal time is not affecting us the way it's done in the spiritual world. There's no death anymore. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you for addressing that. Thank you. Any other questions from devotees? Any thoughts, any comments, any clarification, any realization? Just a humble reminder to the devotees that we are going to continue with our Bhagavad Gita hearing from Srila Prabhupada this evening. Srila Prabhupada says, please do join us at 6 o'clock as we go into the next verse. I believe it's verse 11 to 12, I believe. Srila Prabhupada covers 2 verses in the Bhagavad Gita in chapter 1, some of them depending on the verses. So please do join us this evening at 6 o'clock with Srila Prabhupada hearing directly from the founder Acharya at 6 o'clock. If there are no questions or comments, we thank you all for joining us, and we really thank this wonderful class on time, because it's so important that we really use our time and making sure that we're using it in Krishna consciousness. Thank you for making that point. And especially thank you for addressing the point of hearing. I think it's so important that we make time for hearing all the time, because that is the first and foremost, Srila Prabhupada said, as you mentioned in your class. So thank you so much for bringing that up. Until then, Vanchaka Privyascha Kripasindhavevcha Patitanam Bhavanebhya Vaishnavebhya Namo Namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Have a wonderful day, devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. One thing before we go, quick. The last week of Kartik, this is the last week of Kartik, and the last week
Yes.
of Kartik, you get even more spiritual credits for everything that you do. Even more spiritual credits. If you heard that a bank that you deal with says that every time you go in there to deposit $1, they're going to put in your account $1,000. Boy, you will really rush to go do that. This is the situation we're in. So every activity we do now is multiplied the spiritual credits several times in this last week of Kartik. So take advantage of it. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you. Hare Krishna. Have a wonderful day, devotees. Hari Bol.
Hare Bol.